Good morning. It's a cold, chilly, but mostly sunny day around the region here in the DC region. I'm Ryan Miller, meteorologist and science teacher with you here on this Friday, and we are wrapping up the week of change and looking at change in all kinds of forms, whether it's in the weather, and it certainly has changed, so much so that we are running between 12 and 20 degrees colder right now than where we were at this time yesterday. So changes in the air, no doubt about that. Changes are occurring with the seasons that we're in right now. We've been looking at change in science and math and all kinds of things related to change. We've got a great show coming up today. We're going to look at and examine change in a few different forms relative to cooking. We're going to look at change in the environment and measure out some contours. But we're going to get right to the words of the day, and we have some favors and questions to ask of all of you. We're on Facebook right now. Facebook, if you go to it and search for WJLA.com, we're streaming and we are live on Facebook. We would love to interact with you. We started this yesterday looking at the idea of birds and what the state birds are for different locations. In Virginia, it's the cardinal. And we learned yesterday from Corey that in Michigan, it's the robin. So here is my challenge to you. Please answer these questions in the next bit of time on Facebook and let us know. What is the state bird? And I don't know it. What's the state bird in Rhode Island? If you're in Rhode Island, or if you know someone or you're from Rhode Island, could you tell us what's the state bird? And please let us know on Facebook. And what is the state bird in Pennsylvania? So if you could figure out the state bird of those two locations, Pennsylvania and Rhode Island, interact with us and please let us know. My colleague Rachel Kay is monitoring and keeping tabs on the Facebook Live page right now. So please answer those questions and inform us. We've got words of the day, some spelling words for you. And these words are actually all relative in some aspects to change. Season is the first word. If you could work on spelling season for us today, you can spell it out on a video, you can spell it out in sidewalk chalk or on a piece of paper. Perhaps you could decorate a piece of paper with the word season. Predict is the other word that we will have for today. Learn to spell predict, P-R-E-D-I-C-T. And there's lots of predictions involved with change, whether it's the prediction of human behavior or the weather. And then here's a toughie, fungible. Fungible. Not only can you spell fungible out for us, but I'll tell you what, take a video of you looking up what fungible means and get back to us and let us know what's the definition of fungible, and please spell it. Easiest way to get those replies to us and to answer these questions and show and share your spelling of these words. I'm on Twitter at Ryan Miller, one word, _ WX. That's the abbreviation for weather. I don't know why. I have never known why. But Ryan Miller _ WX on Twitter, or WJLA.com /chime in. Those are the ways that you can quickly and easily communicate with us here and let us know what's happening. Let's take a look at some pictures that were sent to us from our Chime In section of WJLA.com. And I'm going to pull that up right now, actually. And we have several sections that you can share and showcase photos with us. Celebrate your senior graduating from college or high school. We'd love to hear from you about that. You can also look at some of the other photos and share with us here. But this is Aiden. Aiden's going to be graduating here very shortly. Aiden is out at Osborne High School in Manassas. Aiden, congratulations on the forthcoming graduation for you. We're happy to hear and see that you're doing that. And then we also have Damien that's going to be graduating in June. Damien, we're wishing you a happy graduation. Congratulations. And please, if you're at home, share and showcase all of your seniors graduating from whatever they're graduating from. And we'll certainly recognize that here on the show. So we've got some pictures relative to change. These folks are going to be changing, obviously, and moving on beyond high school. And then we have Richard, my Uncle Richard, actually, who sent me some photographs. Speaking of change, he has been working hard on creating and helping out the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley. He built the sign that you're going to notice if you happen to be out towards the Winchester area. And in the Shenandoah Valley, my Uncle Richard was working very hard over the last few weeks and months. And my Aunt Pat as well had been assisting and helping him as they change and create the sign. These are some photographs of the preparation that went into making the sign, and then the final product, it is done, it is ready to go, and you can see it if you want to check out something cool, the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley. That is something that you can go ahead and see, and there's some change that we're seeing in showing up in construction. So we're talking change here today. There's a few things I would like to remind you. If you're at home and you're working on trying to deal with the idea of keeping that schooling process going, as an educator myself, a few things that I would certainly recommend to you is that, number one, you try to activate prior knowledge in the kids you're working with, whether it's your kids or someone else's kids perhaps, and you're doing some caregiving. You're going to want to activate prior knowledge. Let folks know, or when you're working with children, what do you know? What do you bring to the table before you start learning something? Make learning active. Get outside if you can. Try to make sure that you're activating, you're getting those kids up and about, and you're not being passive and trying to teach something. And then certainly try to rely on us if you have some activities that you'd like to share, if you would like some suggestions on things to do. Our Outside the Classroom website is a great source, and I'll pull this up right now. We have all kinds of things that you can use to learn as resources here to keep that learning process going. We have created and put together some wonderful resources here to do some mapping and to collect data and to report and speak of data here. So there's lots of resources for you to use. And while my photographer Rich is zooming in on that, I did want to share a map that we built. We have directions on how to use this. Please observe the weather and report the weather. Let us know what's happening wherever you are. And all of these dots are representing weather conditions and weather reports that have been sent to us. So please let us know what we can do as a service to you to help you out. This is Outside the Classroom. I'm Ryan Miller. It's Friday. We're happy to see you here, and we will certainly be right back. Well, that didn't take long. The questions that we posed here just a few minutes ago have been answered very quickly. And I have to thank Gail Jett for watching us here on Facebook, Aaron Smith, Anya Levy, and Paris Neal. Thank you for getting us those answers here. I now know that the red hen is the official bird of Rhode Island, and the ruffled grouse is the official bird of Pennsylvania. So we've got the robin from Michigan, in Virginia the cardinal, the ruffled grouse in Pennsylvania, and the redhead in Rhode Island. Let's keep it going here. Do you know what the state bird in South Carolina is? If you're watching or listening and you know, could you let us know here? Interact with us on our Facebook live stream, or please let us know on Chime In or Twitter. What is the state bird of South Carolina? And while we're headed south, what is the state bird in Georgia? Let us know. If you do know those answers, we'd love to interact with you and keep that learning process going. I've just learned a couple of things here as well about two new state birds. So let's get to it. Here's an idea that you can do at home. We are looking at change in the environment. One of the ways to look at change is to measure out and use what we call contours and to do contour mapping. We have an Outside the Classroom contour mapping activity that I've put together that you can easily get at WJLA.com. If you have the ability to print, then you can go ahead and print this out. And this document here has plenty of instructions and information on how you can begin to create contour maps. We use contour mapping in so many different ways, whether it is in science, whether it is in elevation, whether it is in actually weather. Contour mapping plays a huge role in allowing us to see what's happening in the environment. So an easy and great example of contour mapping would be to look at temperatures. And if you'll notice right here, we have a map of temperatures. This is how temperatures have changed actually over the last 24 hours. And we don't have data for every single location within and on this map. So we have data for certain places. So one of the ways that we can use contour mapping to try and make assumptions about the environment beyond these little spots here with numbers is to try to use contour mapping. And you can do it for temperature, you can do it for elevation. I'm going to ask Rich to stay on there for one moment, and I'm going to switch and put another map on here. A better example of contour mapping would be what we see in the temperatures right now and the discrepancies across the United States. Again, we don't have points everywhere, but if you'll notice, the colors change. And you can create these contours that you see showing up on the map using contour mapping. So, as an activity and an idea for you, one of the things you could do is take this. We have an example of some data that is showing up right here on this little box. And it's almost like connecting the lines, but it's not. You want to look at the differences between your points. 217 and 205, roughly in between those, I would plop it down at about maybe 212. So I would draw a 212 line and see if you can connect it. I'll give you a real quick clue here, and you don't need to cheat if you're at home. The answer to the contour question is on the back side. It's the second page. You can certainly get that, but this is one of the ways you can use and come up with data to try and create a contour. You can do it for elevations. And an example of using contours and elevations is on the document. So you can look at and see how elevation changes. And you use contours to denote and show change on a map, whether it's changes in weather, changes in the elevation that you see here. But try to use contours and try to do this activity and exercise. And you can check out contour maps as well. One of our resources on the bigger screen here as I zoom in is you can go to this arcgis.com website and absolutely don't feel the need to create an account. You don't have to sign in. But if you go to base map and you start to change your base map up, we actually have contour maps that you can use. So I'll pull up this topographic map, which is one of the ways that we can keep and look at and showcase contours. And if you start to zoom in, you're going to be able to see and look at the elevation and be able to look at and change the elevation or change your view to see the change in elevation here on these maps. So let me see if there's one other map. Oh, here, perfect. Here's a topographic map we can use. And these are all contour lines. These are all changes in elevation. And if you go across a contour line, you can either go up or down as you walk. But if you walk along a contour line, then you're not going to go up or down. You're going to keep your elevation the same. So if you go to arcgis.com, change the base map, and put it on the USA topographic map, that's a great way to examine and look at the contours that are all around any location where you live. We'll have more in just a moment.
Ryan, I'm standing along a branch of the Patapsco River to talk about change, to show you change and what a river can do. Rivers and streams actually like this one, or major bodies of flowing water, have the power to change and reshape the land. As streams and rivers cut into the earth, they grind and they churn small rock and soil. They erode and can change an area over time. Hey, this stream started out very narrow and has gotten a lot wider over the years from the power of the water itself. Over time, streams, this one, will change the land they flow over, carving new paths for themselves. Notice that the trees have fallen into the stream. They were once on the bank of the water. Now the water wider, the stream really compromising the roots of the trees, allowing those trees to fall right into the river. And all of the rocks, the pebbles, soil, and tree parts, now they're flowing down the river, and they're also part of the change. Hey, we don't notice the slight changes that take place from day to day, but we do notice those major changes from weather events like flooding that have the power to reshape and change the land.
That is the always awesome Veronica Johnson, my colleague, meteorologist Veronica Johnson. Thank you for that wonderful video, Veronica. And speaking of erosion, with the Patapsco River in northern Maryland and all over our region here in the mid-Atlantic, we have to deal with elevation change. You can do a contour map. And in my backyard, we've got lots of elevation change, and we have to deal with erosion as well. One of the ways you can try to deal with and manage erosion, because we don't want the soil going off and leaving and changing your environment. Soil is actually in sediment the #1 water pollutant by volume in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So one of the things you can do to slow down erosion is to slow the flow of water down across land. And you can use rocks to do that, or you can use plants to try and anchor the soil so it does not erode and you don't see that kind of change in your environment. And so rocks and plants are really a great way to kind of slow that flow of water, slow down erosion, slow down change in the environment, and keep the soil where it should be, which is on the land, and not washing into our streets and heading into our waterways. So that's an idea that you may want to consider and think about. If you ever have any erosion issues at your house, you can actually start planting ground cover and plants. There are lots of different types of plants that you can use as ground cover, whether it's something like a liriope or a fern or these rocks here. I've been finding rocks all over our neighborhood for a long time. Underneath my house, actually, speaking of change, the deeper you go below the surface, there is tremendous amounts of this type of quartz. We've got lots of quartz. So over time, with changes on the surface of the earth, quartz actually ends up popping up out of the ground because of erosion and other forces. And so I've been finding lots of chunks of quartz and using those chunks of quartz to keep the erosion and the flow of water and keeping erosion from occurring here where I live. Now, let's take a look at some changes. We're going to go from the ground up, and meteorologist Rachel Kay, my colleague here in the Stormwatch 7 Weather Center, she's going to show us a look at how things change in the atmosphere and we get beautiful things like clouds.
Rachel Kay here. I'm back in front of Ideaventions Academy in Reston. It's a cloudy day. You can see the kind of overcast skies there. And today we're actually going to go in to talk with Ryan Heitz about how clouds form, kind of the water cycle and the change that goes along with that.
Hi, we're here making a cloud in a bottle, or cloud in a jar. In this case, we need a few things. We need some warm water. I heated up some water here. It doesn't need to be boiling. We need some saran wrap. We need a lighter. We need some paper, any paper will do, and some ice, and obviously a jar or a bottle. All right, so we're gonna start off by pouring hot water. It doesn't need to be boiling once again. Just a little bit, about an inch or so in the bottom. Next thing we're gonna do is we're going to get a piece of paper and we're going to burn this piece of paper. Now this is an experiment because of the hot water and the flame. You're going to want to have a parent helping you or watching you. Just let it burn for a bit, then drop it in the water. And what we're trying to do here is just make sure we have some particles. We'll talk about that in a second. Some particles of dust or smoke. So now I've covered it with the saran wrap and I'm going to put some ice on top. Just 1 or 2 pieces is fine. Oh my gosh, already are we starting to see some cloud forming? And there, I put my phone underneath with the light and you can see the cloud forming and you see it moving around. The warm water is causing it to rise up, but then it hits the cold ice and it's causing it to fall down. So you can even see convection in here. But because we can see, we know those are water droplets. Those are water droplets actually condensed on that nuclei, those little particles that we put in there from the smoking piece of paper. What we have is change. We have change from water in liquid form to vapor, and then back to liquid in the form of droplets. So the cloud is actually made up of droplets.
We're wrapping up another week here on Outside the Classroom. The whole purpose of this show, and I'm an educator and a meteorologist, is to give you ideas, activities, things that you can do at home to make sure we're continuing to learn. And really the focus that I've been pushing with my kids, and I hope you would as well, it's really at this point in time, it's not about completing tasks. It's not getting check marks. It's not necessarily just getting worksheets done. The idea here is to really learn something new each day. whether it's a simple thing, whether it's the idea of what does fungible mean? How do you spell fungible? If you just get that done, well, that's a win in my opinion here. So it's about learning something new each day, not completing tasks. We have put together, and I've put together, lots of different activities that you can do at home. We were talking about a second ago how windy it was. The wind, of course, has died down. You can make an anemometer, and you can measure the speed of the wind. Well, it's starting to pick up as I mention it here, but there are simple things using all of the stuff that we have around the house often. And if you don't, there are some things that you can download, a template that you can download here, but you can build an anemometer to measure change. We can look at change in the appearance of all of the different things that are starting to bloom. Yesterday, we came up with the idea of a scent scale and try to measure out and determine what flowers smell the best. Lots of resources and simple activities that can easily be done around the home. Teresa Thompson was checking in on Facebook. Thank you, Teresa. We have learned that the state bird of South Carolina is the wild turkey. So there we go. Now we have the wild turkey in South Carolina, the redhead in Rhode Island. We've got the ruffled grouse in Pennsylvania, robin in Michigan, cardinal in Virginia. I still have a lot of states left that I don't know the bird, the state bird of. So please let us know. If you don't even know, or maybe you do, maybe you could just send us a quick tweet, or perhaps check in on Chime In, or maybe just Google it and let me know as well. I'm curious. Well, we're looking at and continuing to monitor all the changes occurring around us. We're here as a resource to help you out with anything. We're going to be looking at the bees and how they start to become more active as the sunshine changes the temperature. But we're here for you. Let us know how we can help. This is Outside the Classroom. I'm meteorologist and science teacher Ryan Miller. I hope you have a good day. Good morning. It's a little chilly here. We've had lots of change with respect to the weather. Our winds have changed to the north. It is now much colder. We're actually about 15 degrees colder right now than we were at this time yesterday. It's in the 40s. So we're going to be looking at change. Change is occurring behind me. We have a fire going. Actually, this is not just for heat, and it is nice actually to get some heat off of here. We're going to be cooking and changing some ingredients and turning them into pizza in this pizza oven behind me. Speaking of change, we can see that the wood that is on fire is changing. The carbon that was sucked out of the leaves of the trees was turned into wood, and the wood is now being burned, and the carbon that was in the wood is now going out through the chimney as carbon dioxide. That is the carbon cycle, and change occurring right behind me here. And luckily we have some change occurring because this fire feels nice and good. But it is Pizza Friday here on Outside the Classroom, and I'm going to make some pizzas here, and we're going to show you how you can put together some pizzas. Even if you don't have a pizza oven, you can at least use this recipe, and we'll put it up on the WJLA.com Outside the Classroom website, and you can get the recipe and try to make your own pizzas and share and showcase those photos with us. Welcome back. We're looking at words of the day. We have 3 words that you can work to spell and spend some time working on. Season is our first word of the day. Predict is our second word, and fungible is our third word. Not only do we want you to spell fungible, we want you, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, to let us know, what does it mean? And how does it relate to the idea of change? Quick way to get in touch with us. I'm on Twitter, Ryan Miller _WX, and WJLA.com/chime in. Send us and showcase and pictures, photos, whatever we can do. If you have questions, we're here for you. Please let us know what we can answer. We have a resource in the Outside the Classroom website. I would like to showcase and share that with you right now. If you're looking for any of the activities that we have done in the past, you can go ahead and download some of those activities. We have the STIR app, STIRR. If you go and download the free STIR app, you can get access to all of our shows in the past at just the click of your screen. I was going to say click of the button, but really there's no buttons. Just click on the screen on the Stir app, and you'll have the opportunity to access any of the shows, the activities, the lessons, the things we've done so far for the show. So we're looking at change. We're wrapping up Change Week. We have been spending some time preparing the fire here to do some cooking. I want to show you some video footage that I took yesterday, and it really does a heck of a job of embodying the idea of change in the wind and change in the weather. This is time-lapse photography over about 35-40 minutes. I aimed my camera on my phone. There's a time-lapse feature on my phone on the camera, and you can see those clouds, and as they're just rolling across the screen, you can also see the wind pushing and changing the position of those tree branches. So it's an interesting thing to do at home if you have a camera with the ability on your phone to take time-lapse photography, a very quick and easy activity. And I'm just going to grab a couple of things. The studio, aka porch, is turning into a mess with all the stuff that I've accumulated. An easy way to look at and observe change occurring in the environment. I have a meter stick, and I know many folks don't have meter sticks at home. I took this from my classroom. Shh, don't tell anybody. Put this stick or a meter stick or anything up in the ground and measure the shadow that it casts. If you wanted to do that, you can make and observe changes in the length of the shadow and the position of the shadow. That's something we did earlier this week, but it's an easy and simple activity that can be done, and it doesn't have to be a meter stick. You can just simply take a stick that fell out of a tree with all this wind. You can measure the length, you can measure the position, and you can go ahead and chart out and look at how the sun's position in the sky is changing through the change in that shadow. So that's just an easy idea for you to take a look at and to interact here with the changes we're observing and seeing throughout the environment. So Change Week here, we're looking at changes in the weather, changes in the sky, changes in the soil. We're going to be going over some things on how you can see changes in the sky relative to the amount of solar radiation that comes from the sun and interacts with our magnetosphere. You can look that up. The magnetosphere is a part of Earth's protective apparatus that keeps us protected from some of those harmful rays from the sun, but it does do and produce a very interesting and beautiful changing phenomena. We're going to have that right after we get back from the break. And please, we're on Facebook. Interact with us. Let us know. I'm kind of curious. What's the state bird of Florida? If you're listening and you see us anywhere, let us know. Get back to us here on Facebook and answer that question. What's the state bird of Florida? Good morning, it's Outside the Classroom, and I'm Ryan Miller. I'll tell you what, we're trying to learn something new each day, and this has kind of morphed into an activity for me to learn something new. I'm keeping a list of state birds, and I don't have any reason why this, to tell you why this started, other than I'm now curious. I know in Virginia it's the cardinal, in Rhode Island it's the red hen, South Carolina has two, the wild turkey and the Carolina wren, the ruffled grouse in Pennsylvania. Rich, am I missing any right now that we've learned about? Oh, Michigan is the robin. And I also have learned that in Ohio, it's the cardinal. So I now have 6 states, and only, let me see if I can do the math in my head here, 44 states left to figure out what the state birds are. So if you are watching on Facebook or on Instagram Live, or perhaps you're just watching us online at WJLA.com, please check in, let us know. I've got 6 states down and 44 to go, and I'm just kind of curious about that. So we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're everywhere basically, and on television at the moment. We're going to be looking at changes in the upper atmosphere way up above our heads at about 200 miles up actually. Some beautiful phenomenon known as the Northern Lights. Meteorologist Rachel Kay, my colleague in the Stormwatch 7 Weather Center, is going to share and showcase some very interesting information about changes occurring in the upper atmosphere.
Stormwatch 7 meteorologist Rachel Kay here, and as we continue learning from our living rooms, I wanted to take you to see the Northern Lights. It's not something we can really see from here in Washington, D.C. It's typically most visible from near or above the Arctic Circle, and really only visible at night, or as we would typically think of it, in the wintertime when nights are longer. So one of the best places to see the Northern Lights is Tromsø, Norway. We're gonna head there to take a look at some of the beautiful views. Now, Tromsø's on an island in far northern Norway. It's just above the Arctic Circle. And because it's above the Arctic Circle in the winter, the sun never rises from late November until early January. So it's non-stop night or darkness, which makes it a lot easier to see the Northern Lights. The chemical reactions that give us the Northern Lights actually do happen any time of day or year, but we're just not always able to see them. Now, there's some interesting Norse mythology around the Northern Lights. They used to think that they were reflections from the shields and armor of the Valkyrie, or the female warriors. A lot of cultures around the world have different myths regarding the Northern Lights because they were just so fascinating, and there used to be no explanation. But of course now, we have a better understanding for the science.
But then suddenly, just before midnight, a small gap opened up in the clouds, and you could see a few stars. And suddenly it was like somebody was switching on the light switch. The Northern Lights appeared, and they were so strong that they were shining, glowing through that small opening in the clouds. It lasted for exactly 60 seconds because I have a video of it dancing, and it was absolutely fantastic.
The science behind the Northern Lights is that the sun's solar flares kind of throw electrically charged particles out into space, and when those reach Earth, a lot of them are actually blocked by the magnetosphere, but some get caught in the ionosphere. Now, we're talking about the outermost layers of the atmosphere here, but the ionosphere still has some elements of our atmosphere: oxygen, nitrogen, and when the charged particles from the sun's solar flares interact with those molecules, it creates the different colors that we see in the night sky. If you ever think you might want to try to catch the Northern Lights in Tromsø, Norway, once we're able to travel again, just make sure you do go in the winter, because being above the Arctic Circle means in summertime, the sun actually never sets. You have no darkness to see the Northern Lights. That's from about mid-May until late July. More lessons and interesting tips around the world as you keep your kids engaged from home on Outside the Classroom, Monday through Friday.
And thank you, Rachel. You know, she brought up a couple of things in that interesting story. We've got the magnetosphere way above our heads to help protect us from some of that harmful radiation. We also have some part of the atmosphere known as the ionosphere. And the ionosphere, I'm trying to get an image here to show up on, of course it's not showing up because it's live television, but let me see if I can get this. The ionosphere is one of the layers of the atmosphere that is way above our heads, and it's an interesting part of our atmosphere in the sense that if you, at night, have an opportunity and one of those old radios that you can use with a nice antenna to pick up AM frequencies. AM frequencies from far away bounce off the ionosphere and can be transmitted down to the surface of the Earth. You can be in Washington, D.C., and you can pick up radio stations at night, AM stations from places like Iowa, actually, as the radio waves bounce off the ionosphere. So there are some changes occurring right now in the frequency of radio waves. Let's take a look at how changes occur with food and snacks at home.
With kids home from school, we parents are tasked with both educating and entertaining our kids for hours on end, and we need all the creative ideas we can get. Am I right? Preparing a simple midday snack together is a fantastic way to both keep your child engaged and teach them valuable lessons about food, cooking, nutrition, math, and geography. Let's say, for example, that you and your child decide to prepare my delicious edamame avocado dip. You can find the recipe in the Files tab of my Facebook group if you want to try it. Now, to turn this culinary adventure into a valuable, fun, and tasty lesson, all you have to do is get curious. Choose one or more ingredients from the recipe, then ask and answer 7 simple questions. Number 1, what is it? Is it a fruit, vegetable, nut, seed, grain, herb, or spice? Number 2, when does it grow? Winter, spring, summer, fall, all year round? Number 3, where in the world does it grow? Oftentimes, a single ingredient will grow in several places in the United States or around the world. Now, once you've discovered where it grows, find those places on a map. Number 4, how does it grow? Does it grow on a tree, on a vine, or underground? Number 5, why is it good for me? What nutrition does it bring to the table that supports my wellness and my energy and enthusiasm? Number 6, what does it taste like? You and your child can take a small bite of the chosen ingredient, chew it thoroughly and thoughtfully, then describe it. Is it sweet, salty, sour, bitter, spicy, pungent, or a combination? And finally, what would the recipe be if we had to double it or halve it? This is your chance to do some math. You can double it using either addition or multiplication, and you can halve it using either subtraction or division. Now, parents, I know that many of you won't know the answers to all of these questions, and that's okay, don't panic. You can either look up the answers in advance and share them with your child as you cook, or if your child is old enough, you can make it a research project for them that they can then report back to you. Here is to staying home together and not going crazy.
Welcome back to Outside the Classroom. I'm being a little quiet because we're watching this squirrel try to eat from the bird feeder, and it has become a balancing act. Oh, and of course it knows it's on camera. Maybe it's going to make another shot at the bird seed that's in that bird feeder here. But this is something you could do at home. If you live in an area or have a backyard, or perhaps in an apartment building that's near some wilder and forested areas here, keep a wildlife journal. What do you see? Do you see that squirrel at the same time every day? And speaking of that squirrel behind me, it's very difficult to see it as it's blending into that tree. So do you see certain birds? Do you have a bird count? How many birds do you observe in your yard? And that's an idea to just detach from some technology, to sit out and enjoy and get some peace and mindfulness coming from being outside and in nature. There are a lot of benefits from a mental health perspective from spending time outside and in nature. So there's some things to consider. We have been looking at change. We are going to try and make some pizza. I have prepared some pizza dough, and I am not a professional cook by any means, but I do have a pizza dough recipe that I like to use, and I put it together very quickly this morning, and I'm going to take some of the dough right here, and let me put some flour down first. I have a pizza peel that I can throw a little flour on, and I'll put this recipe, not that it's anything special, on the Outside the Classroom website, but I have some pizza dough I've made. I did wash my hands, so if you're watching at home and saying, wait a minute here, what's that all about? I did wash my hands. I have some dough that I'm going to put out on here and start spreading it out. And the pizza purists that are out there, I do know they can toss the pizza and make a big, nice, beautiful pizza pie shape for you. That is not me. So I'm sorry if you're looking for me to throw this. It'll probably hit the camera and then cause lots of problems here. So one of the tricks for me to make pizza is that you want to get that oven as hot as you can. Now, whether it's an oven in your kitchen or a pizza oven like the one that's behind me, we have the temperature in that pizza oven right now is at about 800 degrees. So one of the things I try to do is to get that pizza to be fast so that it moves off of the pizza peel and heads onto into the oven. I'm going to put just a little bit of sauce down here. This is just sauce out of the can. I didn't spend time grinding tomatoes up and putting it together. And mozzarella cheese that came from the grocery store down the street, and thank you to all of the folks that are working hard to keep us supplied with food. So I have put some simple ingredients here, and we're going to watch how this changes as we put this pizza into the pizza oven. So I'll load it in here. It's fast, nice and fast. Now, the first time I ever tried to cook pizza in this pizza oven, I put a pizza in. I went inside and started talking to somebody, came back out in just a couple of minutes, and that pizza was charcoal. So when you're cooking with a really hot oven, it's important to be mindful of the sense that you need to make sure that this is constantly monitored and changed. So we're cooking this pizza up, and I can already see some of the cheese beginning to melt and change form as we add heat. And the dough itself is starting to just get a little bit harder. I'm going to actually turn this carefully and attempt to do this. This is my first attempt at cooking pizza, actually, on television. So we're beginning to see that crust turn a little bit brown and get that nice look to it. The cheese is melting and becoming gooey, and this pizza looks like it's taking shape very quickly. So if you have a hungry bunch here in a really hot oven, this is a great way to get everybody fed. I'm going to do one more move here and put it back into the hotter part of the oven and give it a second to get really hot. But really, we've only been cooking for about a minute. And when we return, you're going to see the results. I wish I could share the results with you, but nevertheless, you'll get to see this. We'll have the recipe up on Outside the Classroom's website at WJLA.com. All right, next week we're going to be looking at the idea of modeling, not necessarily in the sense of catwalks and modeling like you think it might be, but modeling in the sense of using simulations for the environment. But you could think of it as modeling. We have a theme we've come up with here on Outside the Classroom for next week. Show us your favorite sports teams. And each day we have a team that you can represent. We've got hockey on Monday, so if you have a hockey jersey or a hockey, anything hockey really, sweatshirt, let us know by showing and putting that hockey jersey on. Tuesday's football, Wednesday's basketball, Thursday's baseball, Friday soccer, or football if you are from another part of the world. So that is what we're doing next week. Let's get back to it here. We're making pizza. We're changing ingredients and making those ingredients morph into food that we can eat. This is one of the pizzas that we put together right now on the wood-burning oven. So we're making that, and that's almost ready. Well, it is ready to go. I've got a pizza in the oven at the moment that is beginning to take shape and form up. So we're going to get that cooking. But I did want to show one picture to you. They had some big time weather changes last night in Northeast Ohio, and my mom, thank you Mom, my mom Jody in Akron sent this picture. It snowed there last night. They actually got upwards of 1 to 2 inches of snow, and it is April 10th, folks. Easter's on Sunday, I guess, right? And snow is still falling in many parts. In fact, it's falling heavily in parts of the Northeast. We're making pizza. We've got the pizza cooking right now. We're changing our ingredients and turning them into delicious treats. The recipe for this pizza dough, and let me tell you, it's nothing fancy, is on the Outside the Classroom website at WJLA.com. You can find us there and find all of the activities and lessons and things that we do to try and keep that learning process going while we're away from the classroom, but we can do things to learn outside of the classroom. I'm Ryan Miller. Thank you so much for joining us, and we cannot wait to see you next week with those jerseys and t-shirts and sports teams represented on Monday. Hockey on Monday.